Today we're doing a slightly different kind of video. We're simply going to take a look at which stocks I would generally consider buying more of. And I'd say let's just start with CMB Tech. CMB Tech is a very diversified player when it comes to hydrogen and ammonia propulsion systems. That means at the moment it's more of a growth stock than a dividend stock. It used to be a dividend stock under the name Euronav. Afterwards, it was taken over by CMB Tech and is now a very large diversified company. So to speak, it's now a major player in shipping, which is why I can imagine that there could possibly be spin-offs here in the long run, but of course that's just speculation. Just take a look at the dividend itself right now. As you can see, over the last 12 months, 0.78% was paid out. And under Euronav, it was sometimes €5.26 and €2.93. We obviously don't see that anymore, but what we do see now is that Euronav, or rather CMB Tech, has now said they want to implement a reliable dividend policy. That means they will indeed pay dividends, but with reliable payouts, so to speak, no more cyclical numbers. That means predictable, that was the word. They now want to pay predictable dividends, and that's also a very good sign for institutional investors. Because when institutional buyers with larger markets and more capital can simply receive their predictable dividends, that's naturally very attractive for them in the end. And that's exactly where CMB Tech might want to go. They might want to successfully draw in significant institutional investment capital for themselves, so to speak, and then ultimately distribute a financial dividend back to shareholders as well. As far as I know, management is probably aiming to pay a dividend yield of around 3 to 4%. I'm just curious to see how things will develop here. I know that in the end, I got in at a favorable entry price, and I'll just let this one run for now, and I'm curious to see what comes out of it, as I already mentioned. So anything under €8 is definitely a top price. And then we also have Flex. Flex LNG is also a very good play in its niche. I would also buy more here. Back then, I bought at a somewhat higher price. That means also due to the strong rally we've seen, I'm actually in the red at the moment. But that doesn't matter because I've already collected a net dividend of €386 here. And this is definitely also a very good dividend stock with about the 10% dividend yield. So for me, it's really in the narrow range of 20 to €22. I really think it's a very good buy at that price. At least for my, let's say, strategy. I won't be buying more of CMB Tech and Flex Energy here because my positions in these are already extremely large. Moving on to Thungela Resources. Thungela Resources is a coal producer or a mine in South Africa. And in this case, I entered at €5.33, as you can see. You have to understand one thing. When oil goes up, coal will follow because coal is basically a kind of buyback, so to speak. So coal is basically the fallback that people rely on. When oil prices explode, people turn to coal and coal rises. Of course, that's also because there's simply more demand. And that's something you just need to know. And I have to say, Thungela is truly a dividend machine. The management is really very shareholder friendly, and even with low coal prices, the management still manages to deliver good payouts. I would say let's just take a look at this here. Very briefly at what has generally been targeted here or what dividends have already been paid out. Here I would say around €5 up to even €7 I believe have been paid out, really. I have to say there are very good price opportunities, but of course it's not ESG compliant, etc. Not compliant. That's why probably no major capital is flowing in here at the moment unless there is a significant shift in the energy policy situation. But otherwise, it's really more for retail investors in the end, for the small market. And in the past 12 months, 7% was paid out, as we can see here. 10 cents have already been announced for this year. Last year, it was 52 cents. Currently, the coal price has been very low. That's something you simply have to take into account. But if my entry point is only €5, let's say, and we're already getting 10 cents out of it, that's something, isn't it? And in September, there is usually another payout. This year, the dividend will probably be lower. But that is probably already priced in, which is why the share price has settled at around €5. But as we can see, the share price here at Thungela really moved, believe it or not, within a week. Simply jumped by 30%. There's not much more to say about it if the coal price rises and Thungela also picks up again here. There's just no other way to put it. You simply make really good money then because the management is really very good and also very cost efficient in the way they operate. Then, from my point of view, it really is a very solid dividend machine, as I said, or rather, it was or is, of course, very unpopular. The sector is also quite clearly, well, South Africa. Sorry, I misspoke here. They're based in South Africa, and that's why December just wasn't a particularly good year. As I said, coal prices, and from a green perspective, there is also a bit of investment happening. You can simply, at the moment, take a look at it as a dividend stock. I've already reported on the last quarterly report accordingly, which is an advantage. There are always share buyback programs and dividends, which are also quite appealing in good years. You just have to be honest and say it like it is. 250 euros high and low here, 9 euros 31 and 3 euros 69. So that's why 5 euros is actually already quite a lot. Just like the price when you look at it in the end, and I already showed you the dividends. So there was even a time when it was 4 euros and 50 cents in 2012 when coal prices were high. And if you think about it, if you really have a stock here for 5 euros, and then we really have a dividend yield or a dividend amount of 4 euros and 50 cents being paid out here, which is almost 100% of your investment. But of course, you also have to say that in the end, it's not the coal price, but the share price that has to be high. It has to be at its peak again here. That means at around 20 euros, currently at 8.77, it's not unthinkable given the current energy policy situation, I would say. Otherwise, we also have Dorian LPG, which like Flex Energy is a specialist in its niche. Ultimately, here I would really consider top prices to be between 18 and 21 euros. Here too, it's an absolute dividend machine. We can also take a quick look at it here. So LPG is the ticker for Dorian LPG. Here we have a dividend yield. So the dividend is at 7.08%, which at the current level is already really very interesting ultimately. And as I said, the buyback zones here are at 24.96 euros, as mentioned, at the 1.68 Fibonacci. Personally, I would rather say I would buy between 18 and 21 euros. Otherwise, LPG really is a very, very good stock. It is almost always fundamentally strong. Yes, here too, you can just take a look at the current quarterly reports. They're not the very latest from me directly yet. Back then, I just showed that I have the stock in my portfolio, as you can see here as well. 443 euros and 90 cents have already been received in dividends from TORM. Here too, I find repurchasing in the 14 euro range very interesting in the end. And yes, they are also really good dividend payers. For a long time, people didn't want to hear anything about these shipping stocks, which always surprised me. But here too, we have a current dividend yield of 7.29%, and the 52-week range was between 13.60 and 31.76 euros. So that's something you should definitely keep in mind. And with a current share price like this, paying out a 7% dividend, guys, that's really substantial. You have to say that clearly. Otherwise, there's also Ecopetrol with Colombian risk, and in the end, of course, everyone has to weigh that up for themselves. That's what I want to say here. Anything under 8 euros is really a good buy for Ecopetrol. And yes, you can see it yourself. Currently up 60%, and I mean, Ecopetrol really does pay out well. Let's just take a quick look here as well at the whole dividend history. But just give it a moment to load, and then we can see here as well. In the last 12 months, 6.69%. Already announced at this point, 57 cents. That's actually more than last year already. That means I think we'll see even higher dividends this year. Let's just see how the situation develops. Here too, you can already take advantage of the 57 cents. Here too, management is very shareholder friendly because they announce things like this in advance. Today is actually April 4th. So here as well, you can take advantage of the 57 cents. With the current share price at 13 euros, everyone can consider this for themselves. But of course, that also makes the situation exciting when stocks are so company friendly, announcing well in advance what they will distribute. Otherwise, we still have Petrobras. Here too, I would buy more. Anything under 6 euros is, in my opinion, a buying range. And because they pay, the dividend is really, really good. Eni, of course, is also in the oil sector. Otherwise, we also have BWLPG, which is also a very strong cash machine. In the end, you could say the entry price was at 7.95. I think here too, there are really very good buying prices around 10 euros. Here as well, it's an absolute cash machine. Let's just take a quick look at it. 8.34 in the last 12 months. Now we already have 49 cents here. That's already 10 cents more than last year. So you can see that this year too, the payout will probably be higher. There may already be official reports on this as well. We'll just have to wait and see. Last year, it was already 10.4%. That's really quite extreme, of course. Exactly. And here too, we can see the dividend peak. Over 5 years, it's 7.59%. And over 3 years, even 9%. So from that perspective, it's definitely a very good stock as well. Otherwise, I also got into something else at a really good time, even though it came with a significant loss. That's why, as you can easily see, right now no one knows how interest rates will develop. If they stay at this level or even increase, a rate cut is actually rather unlikely. At the moment, it's no longer up for debate, but let's see how the situation develops here. For me, the stock is still a buying opportunity, but I want to keep an eye on interest rates first. If they stay as they are, any available cash might just get eaten up. Otherwise, Balin is a top-notch stock, in my opinion. Here too, we have a very good dividend. Here too, I see repurchase zones below 9 euros. Or rather, 10 euros is still completely fair. Let me put it this way, 8 euros would of course be a dream range, ultimately. So let's just take another look at the dividend here. Right now, we even have 6.65% with 88 cents. And this year, 58 cents have already been paid out. Sorry, last year, 58 cents were paid out. And for 2026, sorry, I'm getting completely mixed up right now. So just to clarify, for 2006, a total of 58 cents had already been paid out, which is definitely much higher than in 2028 with 38 cents. So you can see here too, it's continuing to rise. In the last 3 years and even over the past 5 years, things had clearly gone down again. And that was simply because during that time, all the precious metals and commodity prices were basically at rock bottom. That has definitely changed significantly now. Otherwise, we also have energy stocks. For me, energy stocks are also a top pick, but you have to wait and see at the moment because they are producing. Right now, they're not operating. They're based in Israel. That's why they're experiencing outages here as well. That's why you really have to keep a close eye on it. Enagas is definitely a top buy for me as well. Why? Enagas is simply a European company that is ultimately a utility provider and supplies gas. And probably in the future, hydrogen as well. The pipeline has already been built here, or rather, is it still being built? And because of that, the dividend was ultimately reduced. Why was it reduced? Simply to support the funding, or rather, to ultimately secure the financing for the pipeline. And that's why, in my opinion, the dividend has currently been capped at €1, at least until everything has been paid off. Just as you can see here, €1 has already been paid out, and this will also take place in 2026. I believe they intend to do this for 3 years in total. I'm not entirely sure. You'd have to look that up again in detail in the quarterly report. But nevertheless, €1 per share is definitely very good. And that would put us at a current purchase price of, we just need to check where the stock is currently trading. So my entry point was at €13.10. I'm getting a little less than 10%. But right now it's at €17. So the current dividend yield is 5.82%. Definitely a good value for a utility company. In my opinion, it's really a very good figure. And here too, there's a chance that the dividend will be increased again once the hydrogen bonds have been financed, or more precisely, completely paid off. Here as well, the probability is very high, in my opinion. Otherwise, we also have BP here as well. The possibility at €4.53 is a good price. Anything below that is, of course, a dream price. Then we also have Dow. I bought Dow back then because I thought Dow was just so poorly represented. Yes, there was some bad news. Everything seemed negative. And I thought to myself, why? It's actually a top company. A company in the in the chemical sector. And I believe it's even a leader in one or another segment. And that's why I said, okay, I'll buy more here. And the dividend yield isn't bad at all either. So paying out €1.85, and that would actually make a dividend yield of 4.23% possible. In my opinion, that's really a good value, and here too, we have a good chance for growth. It once reached a 52-week high of €61, and now it's at €37.10. We're already moving in that direction, or rather, we've already reached a new high. Yes, so here too, it's a value stock plus the dividend, which is also quite appealing in this range. Otherwise, I would say the price is here as well. Anything under €27 is really very, very good for a company like this to buy. Otherwise, let's quickly move on to see what else we have. Then we also have, yes, Pfizer. I would also continue to buy Pfizer, especially anything under €20 are also dream prices here. The dividend yield at Pfizer is also really very good. Also one of the highest in the pharmaceutical sector. Recently, it was around 6%. Don't quote me on the exact number, but that's roughly where we are. And that's really for a growth stock that's currently at the bottom. Here too, really quite good. Lufthansa, well, what can you say? It's not exactly easy for them right now. Basic kerosene prices, all the strikes, and the whole aviation sector closures, etc. But even here, at €5, I would say these are really very good dream prices you can buy at. Of course, you have to keep everything in view, but overall, they're still doing quite well. A dividend of 3% is being paid. We'll have to see how things develop here. I would also buy more Gloit, but I think more likely below €110 or so. At €90, we also have to see how things finally develop here, possibly also with the situation regarding Amen. Unioku, a pipeline operator. Here too, I would definitely like to continue buying more. Here too, I think my target price was around €55, which is about where I would like to buy more. Because pipeline operators are really excellent stocks in the end. Why? Because they pay. Super relaxed. In most cases, they've actually already paid off their pipelines and can simply distribute the profits to their shareholders. And here we can see we now have a dividend yield of 4.71%. And here too, we always have consistent dividend increases. And of course, that's just very good. And that's why I also like to invest in pipelines. International Seaways is also a cash machine here. Anything under €35. In my opinion, that's really a buying scenario. And you can just take a quick look at that as well. Like here, what the dividend growth rate ultimately is. And let's also take a quick look at the current dividend yield. Yes, because it has a dividend yield of 5.78% and a dividend growth of 64%. And that's just enormous. And we can see here as well. For March, €1.88 was paid out. And that's pretty intense when you see that 64 cents were paid out. Last year, that's a tripling, and that's really quite extreme. And this is just the first payment. That means we've already almost reached the amount that was actually paid out last year. And I'm really curious to see what else will follow here, especially since I also managed to get in at a good entry price at €34. And the stock is currently trading at €65. That means I've already gained almost more than half just from the price increase. So my yield on cost here is really enormous with this stock as well. For Zim, I wouldn't buy any more for now due to the takeover talks. And yes, I'm definitely happy to keep buying UPS. If it's under €85, I'll gladly take it. What can I say? UPS is a major logistics company. The dividend is appealing here too, and they're increasing it as well. When they're under pressure, I'm happy to buy more. Wild income is also clear. Monthly payments on real estate. Also very interesting. Here, anything under €50 is really a very good price for a very stable asset, in my opinion. Otherwise, Novo Nordisk is very strong, although the news is mostly very negative at the moment. Here too, to be honest, I actually see this as an opportunity to buy rather than anything else. Here as well, the dividend is ultimately appealing. The dividend increases are also appropriate, and as long as there is negative news here, I'm also happy to buy. I don't let myself get worked up about it. If the fundamentals are right, then that's fine with me. Currently, management is also paying €1.06, just like last year. That means I could imagine that the dividend will end up being around €1.56 again. What more could you want? I mean, I have no idea. This is a defensive sector with 4.1%. I mean, who could possibly complain about that, honestly? And then you also have the potential for growth here, the growth potential of such a beaten down stock that could go up to €70 because it can rise again, and even more. So honestly, I'm more than happy to accept that. So British American Tobacco, also a defensive stock, also here under €30, or rather under €35. These are also price ranges where I'm happy to buy more. Otherwise, what else do we have? Let's take another quick look at BCEs. We should check how the current quarterly reports look. It's also a telecommunications company in Canada. Kraft Heinz, I would currently hold off on that for now, I'd say. Cardinal Energy, I would continue buying here as well. Also happy to buy under €4. It's really a very good stock. It even pays out very, very monthly. So Cardinal Energy is really growing very rapidly as well. With Glencore, I would actually buy as well, simply because it's ultimately a very large stock that in the commodity sector is really, well, actually, it's basically a major, I'd say. So it definitely has its unique selling point. Here too, it's €305. In my opinion, these are really very good buying zones. Equinor here as well, anything below €22 is for me also a really good buying price. Wallenius Wilhelmsen Logistics is also in the shipping sector. By now, I am really very heavily positioned in the shipping sector. I know there are a lot of stocks in that sector, but as we've seen, many have been taken over or are being taken over in the end. And here we even have a dividend yield of 2.92 euros, and last year it was 2.06 euros. And now this year it's already at 86 cents, a bit less than last year. But even then, I mean, honestly, who would really complain about an 18% dividend yield? Honestly, I don't think so. So here as well, if the company is fundamentally strong, and it is based on the quarterly reports, here too, I'm happy to continue holding on. I'm also happy to buy more between 5 and 8 euros. Frontline, also in the shipping sector, is one of the bigger ones as well. And here too, we can see that the numbers usually speak for themselves. Here, I would probably also buy more between 10 and 15 euros. Then we also have Exxaro. Exxaro is also a coal producer, but not just a coal producer. It's also involved in renewable energy. You can also take a look at that yourselves. I analyzed it in detail in the video. Here too, I think around 8 to 9 euros is really a very good purchase price. And here as well, the dividend is very high, actually. So let's take a quick look at that as well. Let's see what the current dividend yield is here. At the moment, it is saying 7.43%. We also have good growth here. Last year, 43 cents, 42 cents. Now it was 85 cents. Now we've even had an increase to 51 cents. In the end, yes. My entry price was 7 euros and 72 cents, and now I'm already getting 50 cents in the first dividend. Of course, that's nice, but that's not really the point. Should it actually be more about the portfolio, or rather about the portfolio update, the depot update? Let's continue. Then we also have LyondellBasell is also a leading company ultimately with assets in the Netherlands. Here too, I would continue to buy. Also a very good stock ultimately, and it fits the program just like with Dow, where it has. I would also buy Energy Group also here under 14 euros or even at 5,000. Those are really top prices. AKP is also a great company, and here too at 20 euros, it's really a very good entry price. Where else would I buy? Yes, there are probably more where I would buy again, probably. And Rio Tinto, I would say ideally under 60 euros, 67 euros up to 70. That's currently fair. Of course, you also have to say that a lot has changed now. Due to the high prices of precious metals and raw materials, these companies have gained an entirely new valuation potential. Brazil Arco is definitely still a buying opportunity for me. Why? Brazil is still the largest cultivation country, so to speak. And that's why I'm happy to accept that. MPC container ships, there's not much to say here either. Here too, at €1.50 or sometimes below €1.80, I think that's a pretty good range for buying more. I would also buy more Repsol. Otherwise, small caps are of course also a bit of speculation on my part, also due to takeovers, mergers, or other reasons. I would definitely buy more OMV, and the Fitch Euro as well, an absolutely top price here. And with a dividend yield, I mean around 8%. I would also buy more Enel. I think anywhere between 5 and 7 euros is a fair price. Here too, it's an electricity provider in the end, and here as well, dividend growth is always really interesting. It's a very exciting company. And especially with utilities, as you know, they're usually not very popular, but I mean, why not? They pay a dividend yield between 4 and 8%, so why not? And that's just great. Just like the pipeline stocks, that's why I also like to buy them. And here too, I would increase my position. Definitely a buy again below 35 euros as well. Yes, let's say that's also clear. I would also buy more, even though it's actually gone up massively. Has it really? Here, realistic repurchase prices are probably around 20 euros. What else do I want to buy? I would also buy more if oil is low, because for now they're basically doing maintenance for all the drilling and all the servicing in the end. KZTORM is also one of my favorite stocks. That one has also risen sharply. I would say here too, 45 euros at the moment due to all the uranium prices. So of course it has also experienced a massive run up. Ares Capital would also be worth considering to buy. Here you still have to look at the quarterly report. That's something you have to do. Normally I say under 10. Anything that has dropped below 10% or over 10% is basically a buy the dip scenario for me. Here, I just want to take another look at it. I'm not really sure right now because I've mostly stayed out of it, but I'm happy to take a closer look here as well. Just like Helmerich paying something like Nofs ultimately also does maintenance. High rentals, I can really imagine that as well. Even between 6 and 8 euros, it's really a very good purchase price here. Verizon is also a tech stock and it pays well too. Dividend, I can also imagine that as well. Well, let's say 37 euros is really a good buy in the end. So what else do we have? Let's quickly go through it again in a fast run through. Chevron, I think that's clear to everyone more or less. Nordic American Tankers could be an option, but you always have to keep an eye on it. As you can see, I have a lot of shipping related stocks in there like Global Ship Lease. As I said, that's simply because they pay good dividends, especially right now. And with all the acquisitions that are happening, it's also a bit of a speculative play. Otherwise, there's also Amplify, of course, a pipeline company. And here too, buying more under 40 euros would be a dream scenario. What else do we have? Okeanis Eco Tankers because of the whole 2026 green transformation. Here too, a price target of 30 euros would be really great. What else do we have? Otherwise, I would actually buy bank stocks as well, but I was really, until the credit crisis, so to speak, started to take more of a hold, I think. And the banks are also being punished a bit as a result. Altria is always a stock you can easily add to the mix as well. Here too, a price below 50 euros is really very interesting. Farmland partners and the like, I'm also very happy to be involved there, especially in the farming sector. With Bayer, you always have to keep an eye on how the current situation develops, because it's always very, very news driven at the moment as well. Yes, AT&T is also an interesting dividend stock, same here. At 20 euros and below 20 euros, I definitely want to buy more here as well. Something as boring as Austrian Post is of course always super interesting too, because in the end, it also pays its dividend. Otherwise, of course, I also want to buy more Tiger Prints, especially at a price drop from 30 to 5 where I got in. I mean, the video isn't supposed to go on for that long. We're already at 27 notes here. I've already talked quite a lot. Otherwise, I also have something in Chile. In the end, June level Indonesia is of course also a very strong market, but you have to be a bit careful there. Yes, of course, everyone has to weigh that up for themselves anyway. But MP Evans Group, for example, also in the farming sector, I want to increase my position a bit there. Yes, and that's actually it already. Those would be the stocks I would really consider buying more of. Of course, I have a lot of stocks in my portfolio. I know that too, and I'm also doing a bit of cleaning out, but that's really how it is. The top ones I will definitely buy more of because they simply generate cash and are, in my opinion, very interesting. That's it, and this is not investment advice, just my personal strategy. Let me know which stock in my portfolio you would buy more of, or if you have any stocks that I might not even be aware of, that could be the case too. Otherwise, I wish you successful investing, and I'd be happy if you leave me a like here. Also, feel free to subscribe if you don't want to miss my portfolio updates. I wish you all successful investing. See you in the next video.